Hello everyone and welcome to the showdown between the High Elves led by Doctor Strange and the Skaven who are going to be led by the Foul Plague Rat Lord Skrulk. So let's jump right into this game, guys, and take a look at some of these army compositions. So in this match I wanted to try out a build that was very heavily focused on missile play. As such, you can see I do have 4 groups of these High Elf archers who are rocking 180 range. On top of that, they're going to be supported by 2 Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers who do have 2 modes of fire. So I had been facing quite a few Doom Wheels on ladder, so I wanted to see if the single target modality of their firing would be efficient against the Doom Wheels. And also, Skaven are typically going to bring a bunch of Plague Monks or Clan Rats or even Sensor Bears who are very lightly armored and do come in high numbers. So I figured that kind of the spread mode fire that you're seeing going off right here would be pretty efficient at taking them out before the fighting starts. So hopefully my missile units can perform. Archers are also very good against Plague Monks and Clan Rats and Sensor Bears, and because none of those units really have much armor. So that's kind of the drawback of the High Elf archers, is that they do have pretty low AP values, especially when you compare them to the Dark Elves and their Dark Shards, but they do have greater range and really do tear into the lightly armored units. So let's see how they perform this game. So like I mentioned before, I have been running into a ton of Doom Wheels, which just devastate the front line of the High Elves. So Doom Wheels are kind of like specialists at killing units like the White Lines over here, or Swordmasters of Hoeth. And even though Spearmen are kind of an anti-large specialist that does have a charge defense against large, it doesn't seem to matter. The Doom Wheel is very good at kind of running through those guys. As such, I did bring 2 groups of the Silver Helms. So Silver Helms, are a pretty quick unit. They can keep up with the Doom Wheel. I think they have 78 speed, and the Doom Wheel has 72. So I can keep up with it, and they also have enough mass to kind of block it and keep it from going where it wants to go. So I'm really putting a lot of marbles in my Silver Helms, and hopefully they can perform this game. Also, guys, if you do want to play a build that's very centered on missile play with the High Elves, I definitely think you have to bring Teclis. So Teclis does have healing and Pluck of Doom, but more importantly, he has Nets of Amnitok, which is so important. So if you're facing off against a very heavy elite group of Sensor Bears, for example, and they're kind of waddling up to your front line, you can net them down and do a ton of damage. If your flank's about to be compromised by Cav or even Gutter Runners who are very quick, you can net them down and catch them with your Silver Helms. There's just so much utility. And also when you go very wide like this, you can see I do have a bunch of Spearmen and White Lions. The Shield of Safri. So this is the high magic kind of a trait right here. So let me find it. Just give me one moment. Shield of Safri. So whenever he casts a spell, it gives my entire army 11% physical resist, which is going to be huge and really allow these Spearmen and the White Lions to kind of hold the front line. I do have a Noble right here with his anti-large armor piercing attacks and mobility. Very good answer to the Doom Wheel as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it for my army. So for my opponent, he has some Gutter Runners over here who I have netted. So just a true testament to the power of Teclis. He's able to get a really good value play early on, which is hopefully going to allow my Silver Helms to kind of get in there and get some kills. Aside from that, 2 Doom Wheels, he does have some more Gutter Runners going around my flank, which is kind of scary. So if he's able to kind of distract my Silver Helms, these Gutter Runners can definitely massacre my archers. For the main portion of his army, yeah, a bunch of Clan Rats and Slave Spear, so a very cheap army, because when you do go to Doom Wheels and a ton of skirmishing units like this, your main core isn't going to be that strong, but you can see my catapults are just tearing into these filthy rats. He does have Sensor Bears in the back, so these guys are his elite armor-piercing unit. They're taking a little bit of damage, but they should do pretty good against my White Lines if they do get in the front line. And he does have some Storm Vermin with Halberds, which I think is kind of a good anchor for his army. So without further ado, guys, let the games begin. So I do get a very nice net over here with Teclis, or what's his name, Doctor Strange as we called him. And you can see those Knights do get in there, get a nice little charge, and do some decent HP damage against some of these rats. But the one thing I underestimated is that Gutter Runners have really good melee defense. They're actually at 32, and on top of that, they also are pretty decent in melee combat. So they poison my Silver Helms and are doing some pretty good work. And also you can see this damn Doom Wheel is just still kind of poking at my Spearmen right here. But getting the Spearmen coming in and supporting in conjunction with some of this Archer fire here is going to be very crucial. But still, you can see my Silver Helms actually do get terror routed by this Doom Wheel. So man, Doom Wheels are just so strong. The fact that they can terror route and just kind of massacre infantry is pretty crazy. But my Silver Helms do get routed, and you can see the Gutter Runners are chasing, but I did get some very good damage, and I do have some very healthy Archer fire coming down. So he does have his main formation coming in right here. It looks like he's kind of hanging tight and just trying to do some micro with some of his Gutter Runners, but he is now advancing. On that same note, I did send my Noble in, who's doing some pretty good work against this Doom Wheel, has already done some pretty substantial damage, but the Doom Wheel quickly realizes it should be, elsewhere. So he does run through some of my Spearmen right here, which is pretty rough, so definitely sucked for those guys. But at least they were braced, so the Doom Wheel isn't going to get its big charge bonus of 50 against them, and, they're holding. And they do have shields as well. They do have Silver Shield, so against all this kind of a Gutter Runner skirmish fire, they're going to be very resilient. So my archers are turning and firing, getting some very healthy fire against these Gutter Runners who are going down fairly quickly. But I do have my Silver Helms, which I was just waiting for this Doom Wheel. So my Silver Helms are going to kind of surround it. It looks like one of the Silver Helms actually got run over by the Doom Wheel right away. And my Noble is here as well. So we do have this guy trapped up, and you can see it's actually taking some huge damage, which is really nice. So in the mainline fight, it's going pretty well. You can see my White Lines of Trace have kind of pushed back some of these Slave Spears, which is to be expected. But Lord Skrulk has summoned some Plague Monks in front of my arm, or behind my army, which is really bad because now these bad boys can kind of just push back to my archers. So I do pull Teclis over here to potentially intercept them, but it looks like they are just going to be rear charging my White Lines of Trace. So I think what my opponent wants to do is just kind of break my front line and then charge through after that. On this side of the battle, it's just absolute anarchy. You can see the Doom Wheel has been kind of caught and taken out by some of these white lines who are supported by the Silver Helms, who are just riding down these filthy rats on the flanks. And the Silver Helms definitely performing very well. Only have 31 kills, but again, most of the fight they were spent fighting on this Doom Wheel right here. So we've kind of secured this flank a little bit. My archers are reforming ranks. Teclis is going to go in the front and support, but unfortunately you can see these Plague Monks that he did summon are kind of getting in here and prison shanking some of my white lines, and they're going to push back to my archers, which is tough. But you can see all my archers are now starting to focus fire on these Plague Monks, so hopefully I can shatter those guys before they do too much damage, but they're wavering right now. Their leadership's at 5, so 1 or 2 more volleys from these archers over here should put them down. On that same note, I am pulling in my Silver Helms from the back auxiliary to kind of chase, and I decided to get this Doom Wheel off the battlefield. I can't tell you how many battles have just become much harder than they should be just because I didn't finish off a Doom Wheel. So I do have my Noble on a secret agent mission over here, and he's definitely going to be able to take this bad boy out because he is faster. So the Gutter Runners here are skirmishing on my flanks, getting some nice attacks. What my opponent should be doing is sending them into melee, because that's going to shut down my archers. And honestly, these guys with their pretty good combat stats, I mean 26 melee attack, 32 melee defense, and 28 weapon strength plus poison, they could do some really good work against these guys. But the Skaven hordes are kind of pushing through, but I did have some troops on the front line which won pretty heavily. The white lines of Trace right here, or Crace, excuse me, are charging in here, and you can see my Silver Helms are going to get a nice heroic charge in the 4th quarter and, you know, fend off some of these rats. Unfortunately, these are Storm Vermin, but Teclis is here, and you can actually use Teclis as a kind of a damage sponge. So you send him in, you let him get, you know, not surrounded, but you let him tank some of the damage. Then you can use the Potion of Troy, which is so cost effective. It gives him 44% ward save, and it also allows him to heal quite a bit. So we do have these rats kind of pinned right here, but they are Storm Vermin, so they're anti-large, plus Blessed with Filth from Lord Skrolk is going to be very strong against my units right here. So the Silver Helms definitely are not going to last long, and they also have been withered. Their armor is now down to 60, but I do have a ton of missile fire. I formed a bit of a secondary line. I'm even trying to retreat with my Eagle Claw Bolt Thrower, but it looks like Lord Skrolk has got his kind of his pimp cane right here, and he's doing some pretty good work against these guys. But I'm hoping to get them up on the high ground, turn around and start shooting again, but Skrolk is very, very aggressive here. But my archers are firing and just kind of taking out these Gutter Runners. You can see these archers have 34 kills. These ones right here have 65, which is so good for how much I paid for them. But these damn Doom Wheels are just kind of chasing me down a little bit. But I do have the Silver Helms on kind of a guard duty, just always pressuring it, making it very difficult for my opponent to kind of run around as he pleases, essentially. So the bounce power is finally starting to shift to my favor. This Noble over here was able to kill this Doom Wheel, it looks like. Yeah, so that Doom Wheel did go down that wheel of cheese, and he's going to come back and make a huge difference in the main fight. So Teclis is leading these white lines of Crace right here to kind of fend off some of these rats and these Storm Vermin. And the white lines will trade very efficiently with Storm Vermin because they are a halberd unit and their weapon strength is fairly low. Even though a lot of that is armor piercing, still the white lines do have, you know, they have higher weapon strength, and I think they have higher melee attack and melee defense, give or take. Yeah, they do. So they should be able to outclass those Storm Vermin for a much cheaper cost. So thankfully we were able to break this darn Doom Wheel off the battlefield. So things are going pretty good. My white lines, unfortunately, also, or Silver Helms, excuse me, did also break off the battlefield. So hopefully maybe they'll break near this Doom Wheel so they can chase it off the battlefield. This crew is kind of just hanging out, watching their boys, and you can see we do have Lord Skrolk surrounded. So he's just like surrounded with all these spears, just like a rat in the cage, just being speared. And you know, he doesn't have much armor, so even against spearmen, he's gonna go down eventually. There are some Gutter Runners over here who are yeah, they're pretty much broken and wavering. So at this point, it looks like the High Elves are indeed going to take it. You can see my archers are now back online, and they're just peppering these skirmishers. So, you know, had I gone a build that was very infantry focused, because there are a lot of builds with the, I was about to say the Lizard Elves, but with the High Elves that are focused around White Lines of Trade, Swordmasters of Hoeth, very elite. I don't think that's the way to go against the Skaven, because they do have a lot of tools that are very good for taking out those units. They have Doom Wheels, they have Plague Claw catapults. Going wider seemed to work pretty well. The Silver Helms were definitely crucial because they were able to protect my back line. They were able to block up the Doom Wheels, and were just, you know, a very valuable unit at the end of the day. So, and Teclis nets were also very good for kind of getting you out of bind. So there were situations in which, you know, my back line was being compromised, or I needed to kind of reform ranks, and the nets really gave me a lot of cushion to do that. I also think the Noble was a good addition. When I had tried this build previously, I hadn't been using the Noble, but he seemed like a very good tool for kind of going after these big Doom Wheels. And had I seen like a Hell Pit Abomination or, you know, Rat Ogres or anything like that, his anti-large and armor piercing would have been very useful. So yeah, it was definitely good stuff. Archers performed. For my opponent's build, I definitely like it. The Gutter Runners can be very annoying, very similar to like Chameleon Skanks. And like I said, had I brought an infantry build, these guys would have just like poisoned and slowed my infantry, and the Doom Wheels would have been able to just kind of run them over at their own leisure. So yeah, it was definitely a very cool build. So very well played to my opponent, Leroy, what is that, Jenkins? Jenkins. It was quite a bit of fun. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that High Elf for Skaven match, and guys, I got a lot more content coming soon.